My name is Phil. Right now I work as live producer in Wargaming St. Petersburg. I lead a team which is called Global Player Interaction. We actually make sure that all players around the world, especially hardcore players, receive good argument, good information about what we do with the game and why. And in return, developers receive proper feedback from all players. So basically this is community interaction about game-related questions. Well, just to give you some background, submarines were always like taboo topic. When I just started this job as a CIS community manager, my boss told me, like, if players ever ask you about submarines, you just tell them there will be no submarines. We really did not consider it strongly initially because this class historically he was designed for a bit different purposes. Submarines rarely participated in huge naval battles. They work more independently, hunting for enemy supply lines and so on. But eventually we see community demand for the submarines, and while we don't want to rush it, we just want to introduce him in Halloween mode. We have Halloween mode each year. It has become a tradition to have fun event with steampunk ships and some magic things. So it's not very serious, but it's a good ground to test try new ideas. So submarines for now in Halloween, they're like stealth killers, I guess. They are very fragile. They have low speed. They have only torpedo armament, and they really require a lot of thinking, positioning, and anticipation. But if you command them properly, then you can create and execute perfect attacks on enemy ships and then disappear into the depths. So basically the concept is like stealthy assassin. So we want to reflect the historical realities of submarines by providing limited oxygen supply. Oxygen is spent when you submerge either to periscope depth or to real deepest depth when you are almost invisible. And also you spend oxygen when launching torpedoes. When you're immersed, then you're most vulnerable actually, because you have very low protection. Yeah, you have low concealment. Submarines are pretty small compared to other ships. But on the other hand, you don't have any armor. You don't have any proper guns to defend yourself. So when you replenish the oxygen, you're most vulnerable. You have to plan accordingly. Yeah, for now, like in Halloween, it's PvE operations, so only players can control submarines, and the enemy bots will launch depth chargers. Again, this is something that we try to reflect from history. Depth chargers were a huge threat to submarines. Basically, they are launched, they slowly submerge and detonate on random depth. And this is where we have kind of vertical gameplay coming in, because by controlling your depth, you can try to avoid these depth chargers and avoid damaging your submarine. Well, for now, I'm pretty thrilled to see at least how they perform in this operation. I guess that it's a lot of anticipation and emotions for both sides, because as submarine you really need to focus on executing your attacks and don't let enemies see you too much. As surface ship, you need to anticipate that there may be submarine lurking somewhere nearby, and you have to be prepared for the surprise attack. I guess that if they're successful in this Halloween operation, then it will be a proof for us that they will bring new great experience to our regular game modes. If not, well, it's not obligatory. They will just stay fun event. We'll see. We're really excited to see how they play actually with real players when we launch them. Well, basically, when we launched the game, our game is basically live service, a hobby, and we need to sustain it all the time. We had huge list of priorities for several years, like different competitive modes, clan battles, metagame, and we just realized that we cannot let ourselves to spend our efforts and time on an entire new class at the moment. That was the first reason. The second reason was, as I mentioned, that historically submarines felt like a very important part of naval warfare, but not a part of big naval epic battles that we have in our game. But with time, we freed up some resources, and then we realized that it's very popular demand, so we should try it just to keep the game fresh and so that we can meet the community demands. Well, basically, they're all fantasy steampunk submarines. They have several variations. Mostly it's about displacement of torpedo tubes. You have different sectors. You have torpedoes on aft, on bow. Some of the submarines will be easier for new players because, for example, you have only 2 torpedo launcher groups on your bow. It's very easy. You just target with your bow. and you don't have really different torpedo types. Other submarines can have bow and aft torpedo tubes. That means that you can launch actually in front of you, and you can launch torpedoes at the target behind you, which of course requires more positioning, but if you're smart, if you position yourself properly, you can launch devastating attacks from both directions. So basically it's mostly about torpedo management. Overall, of course, submarines in this mode will be pretty strong in terms of hit points. We don't want players to die instantly. It's mostly about fun and proof of general concept, I would say.